finding the inverse of a function, its second part. When you have to write the inverse of a function, for example, you are given a function which is f of x is 2x plus 3, and you have the domain, the x is all real values. Okay, so when you have to find the inverse of a function, you must be very clear. You must be sure that yes, this is a one-to-one function and you can write its inverse. Okay. Now, good students always, before they go on to find the inverse, they ask themselves about the range of this function. Okay, so range of this function is, you must know that that is also all real values, because for this domain this is a line graph. Okay, I mean a linear function. So for all real values, the domain the range is going to be all real values as well. Okay, I'm going to give you some steps over here that will not be following. I just want you to be clear that how this inverse is written. Okay, so this is the working that you will not do. This is just to explain why we do certain steps while finding the inverse. Okay, now you will start by saying let f of x equal to y. Okay, and when you say this, then you say, okay, your f of x is already, and this f of x is going to be 2x plus 3. This is your equation number 2. Basically, this was to be the first and this was to be the second. Anyhow, no problem. Now, from 1, we can say that x is equal to f inverse of y. That is your third equation. Okay. Now you say from 1 and 2, both of these equations, they are equal to f of x. Okay, so you equate their right hand sides. This is y equal to 2x plus 3, and then you write it as 2x plus 3, that is equal to y, and your x is y minus 3 over 2. Okay, now this is your equation number 4. Now from from 3 and 4, from 3 and 4, you see in these, both of these equations, this is your x and this is your x. So they are both equal to x. So you equate again the right hand sides. Okay. Now these right hand sides are going to give you f inverse of y, that is equal to y minus 3 over 2. Okay, and now you can change your y with the x. So therefore this f inverse of x is going to be x minus 3 over 2, where your x is all real values. Like, that is the domain of the inverse, which is basically this range of the function. Okay, so this is what happens while finding the inverse. You will not write all this story. You will simply put this equal to y. You will say, okay, y equal to 2x plus 3. You change the subject. This is y minus 3 over 2. Once you're done with this, you will say, okay, this implies that f inverse of x is going to be x minus 3 over 2. That is what you guys have been doing in your O levels. Do you remember or not? Your teachers told you that, okay, you just put that equal to y or a or whatever and make x the subject. Once your x is the subject, you change that with f inverse of x, and on the other hand side, you change the y with the x. Actually, all of this happens when you're writing the inverse of a function. Had you seen this story before or not?
Yes, sir.
देखा था?
जी sir.
Okay, that's great. Then you must have a very good teacher who explained you that how we find the inverse. Okay. Acha bacho. Now, this is really an easy thing to write the inverse of a linear function. But when you have to write the inverse of a quadratic function, For example, you have f of x, which is, can someone tell me what was that equation? We just converted that into that form. It was 2x squared plus 4x plus 8 or minus 8. What?
-8.
Minus 8. And the domain was x is greater than or equal to minus 1. Okay, and I can quickly recall that thing from the previous session, that this f of x is 2 into x plus 1 whole square minus 10. Okay, now please note it down in your notes that whenever you have to convert a quadratic function into its inverse, you want to write the inverse of a quadratic function, you must have its completed square form so that you can write its inverse. Now, why do you need to have this? Suppose you say, okay, R, no problem, I can easily write the inverse. Sir, to bas aim na लंबी लंबी स्टोरियां सुनाते रहते हैं, मैं तो यूं करूंगी 2x squared plus 4x minus 8 equal to y. Now you know that you have to make x a subject. So when you reach at this level, you will not be able to make x the subject until and unless you have its completed square form. Okay, so now you see that here you are stuck, you're choked at this level. But if you had this thing, now you see you want to write the inverse of this function. So it's 2 into x plus 1 whole square minus 10. You put that equal to y. This is going to be 2 into x plus 1 whole square, that is equal to y plus 10. And this x plus 1 whole square is y plus 10 over 2. And then you take the square root. X plus 1 is going to be the square root. Okay, now I'm stopping here. There is a question that you must ask at this level. Yes.
The plus minus under root.
Yeah, plus minus. Achha, if you write the plus minus, this will become an undefined function. You either have to write a plus or a minus here. Okay, now this is something that only the top in the word, the toppers would remember this thing, okay? If your domain over here, if this domain is pointing towards the positive side, you will keep it positive. If suppose the domain was x is less than or equal to minus 1, like I should have drawn it's like this. Let me draw this completely and then I'll tell you, okay. The curve is like this. Okay, and here is this point which is minus 1 comma minus 10. Okay, you can have at most like minus 1 or below, or at least minus 1 or above. Okay, so if you are considering this part, let me highlight it like this. If you people are considering this part of the curve, let me start from here. Okay, this part of the curve. Okay, so this means that this is this thing over here. We have this domain. Okay, this is going towards the positive side. You will keep a positive here. Okay, and the inverse would be x is equal to the square root, like let me just complete this, and that is minus 1. And you would say that f inverse of x is going to be the square root of x plus 10 over 2 minus 1. Now, what is the range right now over here in this situation? The range is f of x is greater than or equal to minus 10. So what will be the domain here? Please tell me quickly. What will be the domain here of this inverse? Yes?
X is more than and equal to minus 1.
Minus
Minus 10.
Minus
minus
10.
10. X is
Yeah.
greater than or
आपने
equal to minus.
Oh, अच्छा.
Please remember the domain of the function is the range of the inverse of the function, okay? And the range of the function is going to be the domain for the inverse of the function. So I was asking you about the domain, that is x is greater than or equal to -10. Now suppose bacho, same question is there, but instead of this, your domain was x is less than or equal to -1. X is less than or equal to -1. Will this change the range?
No.
No, because if you look at the other part of this, if you look at this part of the curve, which is in the blue box here, so you see here you have the domain is x is less than or equal to -1. Okay, what would be the impact on the inverse of this function then if this is your domain? Yes. At this step, when you reach this step, when you're taking the square root, you will put a minus here because the domain belongs to the left side of the curve, towards the negative side of the domain. Okay, you will put a minus here. There will be a minus here. There will be a minus over here. That is how you will be writing the, I mean, this inverse. That will be minus under root blah 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 like this. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so please remember this. Okay, so now the rest is your practice. I have told you how to write the inverse of a function. Okay, and I have given you the condition, that what is the condition on that function if it can have an inverse. We'll have to the point questions when we'll be solving the past paper questions from this. Okay, I'm going back to the exercise that you people now have to try. Okay, now these are going to be the questions from this exercise here, exercise 2C. It says find an expression for f inverse of each of these, okay? And he is not asking you for the domain. So you must do that yourself. Look at this second question. It says, state the domain and range of f inverse. Let's do this second question and then you will be practicing it yourself. Okay. So first of all, I should be clear about the turning point. So I'll be completing the square because it's a quadratic function. Without completing the square, you cannot write the inverse. So this is x plus 2 whole square, and I have a -4 here. Okay, so this curve is going to be like this. Okay, this point is -2 comma -4. Now let's see what is the given domain. Oh yes, it is x is greater than or equal to -2. So that means we have to ignore this part over here. So I'll be removing this part from here. Okay, so now going back to this. Okay, so it says state the domain and range of f inverse. So right now with this domain, which is x is greater than or equal to -2, our range is f of x is greater than or equal to -4. Anna guys, there you are, na?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Now, for f inverse of x, you would say that, okay, its domain is going to be x is greater than or equal to -4, and its range is going to be x is greater than or equal to -2. That is your part A's answer. Okay. The domain is the range is the domain. And then it says find find an expression for the inverse. So guys, you know how to do that. The square is already completed. The domain is pointing towards the right side. So when you take the square root, you will keep a positive sign there. Okay. So this will be x plus the b part. Okay. We shall simply put that equal to y, and you will make x the subject. So x plus 2 whole square is going to be y plus 4. So x plus 2 is going to be the square root of y plus 4, and your x is the square root of y plus 4 minus 2. Therefore, here is the inverse of this function, that is the square root of x plus 4 minus 2, where x is greater than or equal to minus 4. That is the domain of this function. ठीक है बच्चों, तो that is it from this session, and we are left with one more session regarding the inverse of a function. That would be about the sketches of the function and its inverse. We shall see that inshallah in our next session. Thank you very much.